Perhaps the biggest question from the start of the show was who would end up in the Iron Throne, and the closest answer to that question ended up being Bran Stark. So since the finale has aired, have fans reacted any differently to you? What's that been like for you?
It's been great. I mean, Bran was always kind of a bit of a periphery character. He was never really involved in the main sort of action for many seasons. And all of a sudden he's the king, so it was pretty cool. I've forced my family and friends to now refer to me only as Your Grace. So remember that, everyone.
And in the world of Game of Thrones, where the story is continuing, how do you imagine that Bran Stark's first couple months in office have gone? What has he accomplished so far?
I mean, I can't imagine his government is a barrel of laughs. I think it might be quite serious. And I guess, to all intents and purposes, Westeros is now a surveillance state, with Bran aware of everything that everyone's doing, so, yeah.
Do you think he ended up finding Drogon, and if so, what did he do with him?
Burn a couple of cities down, got back, get the revenge.
Let's see. Along those lines, Maisie, how do you imagine that Arya's backpacking tour is going now that she's out in the world?
I'm sure she's having a wonderful time. Like Dora the Explorer. Minus the bob. But maybe she's cut a bob in, West of Westeros might like the bob, so who knows?
Probably a little more stabby than Dora, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
It occurred to me afterwards that she could have just asked Bran what is West of Westeros, and he could have told where would be the fun in that, right?
That was like my favorite meme, actually. Or like, what's West of Westeros? And it's like, no one knows. And then Bran's there like, are you kidding me?
And Jacob, how do you imagine Grey Worm's move to Nap went? I picture him just kind of chilling on a beach at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's just like starting a new society, like Wakanda kind of vibe in another part of the world. People keep telling me that butterflies killed him. They get there and there's poisonous butterflies. But yeah, I think he's keeping his promise to the Sunday, and he's sitting on the beach drinking pina coladas and protecting everyone.
A colleague of mine asked me to ask this follow-up question. I said, no, that's too sappy, I won't ask it, but I'm just going to do it anyway. Do you think that he could find love again?
What's the right answer? No, not in the same way, no. I think that was a one-time deal, really.
He'll be miserable forever.
What's new?
Miserable forever. Are you happy now? Okay, so you're still in character, you're still very much in the story. And that interview got a lot of attention, it got a lot of pickup. You were very candid about your feelings about the final season. And internet being internet, I think it kind of got, some of those quotes got kind of cherry picked and put onto other sites and kind of pushed perhaps a bit further than intended. I got the feeling you kind of wanted to address that a bit, and maybe some more time has passed. How are you now feeling about the end of Varys?
Well, I don't regret starting the petition. To be very honest, I did an interview with DW way after we finished the show, and the question was, how did you feel at the time? And I was very honest that I was absolutely gutted to get so close but not make the end. But then what?
No. It's inside your head.
I thought I gave a very honest answer to how I felt, but I put it in the context of that was one of the risks in being in a multi-character show, and I thought the whole initial interview was very balanced, but as you say, it was picked over like a whale on a beach, and they took all the negative out of it and didn't put any of the positive in. So for the record, I loved all my 10 years on Game of Thrones. I started when I was 15. Cut your face. Not funny. And it was a life-changing experience, and I met wonderful people on and off screen who I worked with who were beautiful inside and out. And the one thing that last series was about was the futility of conflict and the pointlessness of war. And if that, you get one thing from that whole show, take that. Because it doesn't work.
Speaking of endings, I want to get into some specific burning questions about the final season for each of you that I'm actually quite excited to ask. Nikolai, you've strongly defended Jaime's choice to return to Cersei as exactly what his character would do based on everything that we've previously seen. But if Jaime had somehow survived being stabbed by Euron and being covered in rubble, and Cersei had not, do you think that a relationship with
Then we would have shipped Brady. Yes. It would have been Brienne and Jaime forever.
Are you being serious? Because your character was very much like bit divided on that, saying, "Oh no, this couldn't work because I'm too morally far gone. We're too morally different."
I think he's got a lot of baggage, and I think she would probably find out after a few weeks, and she'd go, "No, I'm going to have to move on to someone else." It's too complicated. Tormund, yes.
But you and Truman?
Yeah.
I like the idea of that. That works for me.
Scandi couple, yes.
Liam, Davos vowed to kill Melisandre, and then she came back and saved the day and killed herself. But if she hadn't walked off into the suicide sun and instead came up to you after the battle and was like, "Hey, how do you like me now?" would Davos still have been able to go through killing her in cold blood after she just helped save so many lives? No, can't, don't help.
I see we've got a few psychiatric patients in here this evening. It's a really good question. It was one of those things that I kind of ran through my own mind when you're kind of preparing for those scenes. I'm not sure. Davos is. I mean, he was described by some people as the moral compass of the piece, and you never saw him killing anybody or. I didn't say Liam.
You described it.
Myself and Davos aren't exactly similar. What do you do? I think he'd have wanted to have done it, but whether he would or not, I think his humanity was always kind of rose to the surface. I would like to think he'd have got someone else to do it. Now that he's a lord. Don't forget, I got a promotion. I'm not Sir Davos anymore. I'm Lord Davos.
The moral compass.
It's a bit of a stretch.
And Jacob, one of the burning questions fans had after the finale was, after Jon Snow killed Daenerys, why didn't Grey Worm kill Jon Snow when he discovered what he did? Because he was killing everybody else. I'm curious if there was a reason you were told back channel or a reason you worked out for your character as to why he didn't take out Jon after he confessed to killing Daenerys.
It's a good question. I think that there is, like in my head, I think there maybe came a point for Grey Worm towards the end where it was just like enough is enough. I think that's a big reason why he kind of left, it was like everybody that was ever dear to him was dead now. And he'd only just learned how to have people be dear to him. And so I think he just wanted to get, it was like, this is a violent place, and this is not what I want my existence to be anymore. I don't just want it to be violent. So I think there's a sense that he was willing for there to be a trial. He wasn't just trying to like kill everyone anymore. I don't think he wants necessarily to kill Jon Snow. He just doesn't want him to be alive.
Yeah. I mean, if I was Jon Snow and Grey Worm walked in, I would be like, "Hey, crazy thing, the murder dragon just killed Daenerys and took off with her. Who knows if they'll be back?" Because after that, everybody in King's Landing would have been down for blaming the dragon.
He's standing there.
So, Conleth, this one I'm pretty sure I know the answer to, but it's one of those things I think a lot of people missed at the very least. At the start of his final episode, a kitchen girl tells Varys that Dany won't eat, and he tells her to try again at supper. It's a cryptic exchange, but Varys he's trying to kill. He's trying to poison Dany there, right? Was that what his intention was?
Question?
Yeah.
Okay, James. Can I call you James? Sure. Once he decides she's going to kill, he's not wrong. She's the coin when the Targaryen's born is going to be one side or the other, and hers has come down a bit cray-cray towards the end. And so I think Varys knew long ago he was going to die, and what the sorcerer might have said to him might have been what she says, when he's burned to death. So I think there was an inevitability about, he knew that he couldn't get through to Jon Snow or to Tyrion because they were both in love with Daenerys, and that blinds people's judgments. So he knew that he had to try anyway to stop her, and that it was very possible he'd be killed. So I thought it was a cool death, but very dignified, and I swear the dragon thought twice about it. If you watch it again, he kind of goes, wait, what? Okay. I'm happy with that. There are ways to get fired, and that was one of the best.
Isaac, you might have heard this theory going around, the evil Bran theory. This is the theory that Bran, because he knows what's going to happen, he kind of sat back and let Daenerys creme brulee torch King's Landing, and then get killed by Jon as a way of seizing the throne for himself. And I'm wondering what you think of that.
Well, I don't think Bran knows per se exactly what's going to happen in the future. I don't think he's not a fortune teller. He's got the entirety of the past at his fingertips, but I think his sort of vision of the future is slightly cloudier. So that's my excuse for why Bran didn't say anything. But I think it's quite cool that it's left slightly ambiguous and that you can read into it. I've read loads of things where like Bran is actually still the Night King or whatever, you can sort of read into those situations and think, wow, has Bran just sort of sat back and let the Starks win, or is he really, a bad guy all along? And I think that's kind of what was one of the cleverest things about the ending, is that it doesn't conclude everything very neatly. You don't have your sort of set endings and you can sit back and go, right, well, this happened to them, this happened to them. It's left totally open. The kingdom's in total disarray. Arya's going off to start her own journey. Sansa's now queen. Bran is king, and they're storylines that could warrant their own spin-off. But they don't. They're left in they're not finished. There's no full stop. There's no period. So it's almost as if the world of Game of Thrones exists still somewhere in the ether, which I think is quite nice. That it's not finished conclusively. It lets you kind of read into it, like with the evil Bran. And it's three-eyed ravens or anything to go by. It's not going to be anyone succeeding Bran for a couple of thousand years. So we know one alive at the moment. I don't know. I think it'd be fun. Maybe the Night King's still knocking about somewhere, and he'll pop up when Bran dies, and be like, you can carry on, mate.
And Maisie, I saved you for last in this round, but I have two for you. First, is Arya let down poor Gendry as sweetly as Arya being Arya could? But if after she's toured around a little bit and come back and visit Sansa, does he have any chance?
I think Arya has always been the lone wolf. I think she's always felt like a bit of a misfit in her own family, and I don't think being with a partner is what would make her feel the most at home or the most fulfilled. So I think that was kind of what that whole exchange was. It was just trying to understand that and know that it isn't necessarily what she wants. which is like an important learning curve for everyone, I think. So they'd probably like see each other at like a friend's wedding and be like, oh hey, like it's good to see you, how you been? And then they're like, oh yeah, like so good. And you're like, cool.
So get very shut later on. Yeah. And another one for you. After Arya killed the Night King, some Jon Snow fans insisted that one reason she did this was because they thought Jon Snow was yelling, go, 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 and he was distracting the Ice Dragon so Arya could run in and make her move. So let's settle this. Did Arya run in and kill the Night King on her own, or was Jon Snow helping her and she was doing what Jon Snow was telling her?
She did it on her own. Well, if we're going to give credit to anyone, then it's Melisandre. Melisandre knew what she had to do to put the mission in Arya's head when she's really at like the lowest point. I think particularly for that episode, this is the first time that she's been fighting, but now she has something to lose. For so long she's been on her own, and being back with her family has made her that much more vulnerable. And I think if we're gonna, put it down to anyone for getting Arya's head back on track and helping her to like go and finish the job, it was Melisandre and the brown eyes, blue eyes, green eyes, blue eyes, all the eyes.
So now favorite line from the show. Could be your character, could be another character. But what is your all-time favorite line? There's so many quotable lines. Let's start with Nikolai and kind of go down the line there.
My favorite was the line when we found out why Hodor was Hodor. So hold the door.
Liam?
I've been really lucky. There's so many beautiful lines in this show, but one of the favorite Davos lines is, put your fingers in your ears. Nothing fucks you harder than time. I think that's magnificent and so true. Rolling that to me all the time on the set, all the time.
Jake?
I'm not like, I know this is really obvious, but Vala Morghulis is like, I think it's it's a very obvious statement. All men must die, but I think it kind of encapsulates the show in a really powerful way. I just think it sounds cool. Liam, you're welcome to.
Thank you. Next.
I'm going to selfishly choose one of my own lines. I really liked Not Today. I have nothing to add.
I'm going to pick one of my own as well, and I've always liked lines of dialogue that tell a complete story outside of their own, entity that is the sentence. And when I first read the line, I always wanted to be a wizard, back in season 1, I just thought, oh, that's a funny line. But I think the more you learn about Sam, the more you realise what a story that line tells about his childhood. Because you're dealing with somebody whose childhood was so tough and so hard and so brutal and unforgiving that he had to create this alternative reality for himself to exist in. And he always wanted to be a wizard because he always wanted to be something other than what he was. He always wanted, I just have this idea of him going to bed and waking up and just I'm still the same. I've not changed, and he would give anything to change.
Wow.
And those kind of worlds are created by people who find reality tough, and find the body that they inhabit a tough place to inhabit. So it's not just, it's a funny line on the surface, but the more you learn about him, the more you learn about his childhood, his relationship to his former self, and the journey that he goes on, you realise that tells you everything you need to know about what he came from and what he's grown out of.
Hi, I think RuPaul Drag Race Series 3.
Oh, it has to be from this series.
I loved I drink and I know things. And that wasn't one of my lines. Good night, everyone. Brilliant, Peter Dinklage is Tyrion.
I think this is kind of one of my lines. It was originally Littlefinger's, and it was in that great exchange between Varys and Littlefinger. And the whole speech is brilliant, but when he says chaos is a ladder, I think that kind of sums up a lot of the world of Game of Thrones and how you get ahead in it. And I especially love that because I got to repeat that back to Littlefinger in a scene, which it's not often you put Littlefinger on the back foot. So that was something really fun to get to do as an actor.